So as we'd have come into the pit lane and we'd boxed, all the other cars would have been pouring past, and it would have been very difficult for Lewis to get out, and that would have delayed us. What was the reason for Valtteri's poor start? Well, I think you need to bear in mind the conditions were really tricky for the drivers. When we formed the grid up, got everything ready, it was raining quite hard, but that rain sort of dropped off, and by the time we set off on the formation lap, actually it was pretty dry, and Valtteri felt he had quite a bit of grip. They obviously go around their lap, and as they're going around their lap, the rain started to really pour down, and when they formed up on the grid for the proper start, there was a totally different grip level available. The drivers have been practicing all week for that start in the dry, and they've got down a sort of pattern of where they want to be with their clutch. And so as we went for that start, the drivers have got to pick where they think they're going to put their clutch. How much grip do they think they've got? And it's really a guess. In Valtteri's case, he thought he was going to have more grip than he actually had. And as a result of that, he got a lot of wheel spin. And that wheel spin just means that you have less grip from the tyres and you get away much more poorly. And that's why he had a poor start. What technically happened to Valtteri on that first lap? Valtteri had obviously had his poor start. He had cars that had come around him from either side, and he was sort of squeezed going into that first corner. The drivers are trying to work out where their braking points are, and they're doing that not really knowing exactly how much grip they've got, how much is the rain going to affect their grip, when should they brake, when will the cars around them brake. And Valtteri picked his braking point, and unfortunately he braked slightly too late. And in doing so, he locked up his front tyres, and as soon as you've locked your wheels, you've lost grip, and he just slid into the car in front. I know speaking to Valtteri afterwards, he felt really guilty for what had happened, really sorry for his competitors that he'd knocked off, and he was apologetic to both the team, also his fellow competitors. That's obviously not what he wanted to happen. What was the extent of the damage to Valtteri's car? To be honest, I actually don't know yet. I left the circuit late last night, and I hadn't seen the damage for myself. I suspect that we'll have broken the front suspension, we'll have probably damaged the front cake tins, the front wing's probably written off as well. And it's almost certainly will have done some damage to the nose. Whether that's recoverable or not, I won't know until we see it. And in actual fact, to really know, all those bits have got to come back to the factory. They've got to be tested and checked properly. We would never put bits back on the car that had been in an accident without checking them first. Why did Lewis not pit on the formation lap like the other drivers did? Clearly, in hindsight, we made the wrong choice. But you have to bear in mind, those decisions are really, really tricky. We agonised over what tyre to fit at the very start of the race. As it turned out, the Inter was definitely the right choice as it started raining on the lap to grid. We agonised over what tyre to fit after the red flag. And clearly all of the cars fitted Inters. And on that lap to the grid, even though all the drivers have fitted Inters, clearly others decided to change their mind. And we should have too. But the reality is it's actually more difficult for us as a team than it is for some of the other teams. When you're the front car, you can't see what everybody else is doing. You're the lead car. When you're further back in the chain, you can see what others have done and you can change your mind accordingly. You can use that new evidence to your advantage. The second problem for us is that we have the first pit box in the pit lane. So as we'd have come into the pit lane and we'd boxed, all the other cars would have been pouring past, and it would have been very difficult for Lewis to get out, and that would have delayed us. The second problem with that, or the same problem, but another way of looking at it, is if we'd have tried to force our way out and into the pit lane, we could well have collided with another car. And we actually saw that happen in that sequence of pit stops. So what we were looking at is what's the best strategy for us? And actually we were thinking that we wanted to be conservative with that. Our main rival was further back, and what we needed to do is to not make a silly mistake and end up crashing into another car. As it happened, we would have been better off pitting even if we had to wait to the back of the queue. If Lewis had pitted at that restart, in what position would he have come out in? Well, it's quite difficult to know because it really depends on trying to find a gap in the pit lane to get out of your pit box. We think P5, P6, maybe something like that. But probably, as I said before, really the bigger risk for us was colliding with another car in the pit lane trying to force our way out, and we would have had to have been conservative. After the restart, when Lewis was on intermediate tyres, why didn't we leave him out a little bit longer and let the gaps in the traffic open up? Well, the easy answer to that is what we were doing is looking at the gap between Lewis and the cars behind. We were looking at how quick that gap was closing. We could see the cars on slick tyres had a pace advantage, and if we'd have left Lewis out longer, all we would have ended up finding is we were even further behind when we did go for the pit stop. The other thing was that in those conditions, if it was going to stay dry, we'd have quickly started heating up the intermediate tyres, and that pace would have dropped even further, sort of compounding our problems. So the best thing for us to do was to accept we made a mistake and to just get on and try and rectify it as quick as we possibly could. And that is always the best tactic in mixed weather conditions. How critical was it for Lewis to get by Ricciardo with the undercut? Well, I think as you saw, it's a really difficult track to overtake. When you've got the sort of same tyres at the same life, it's very difficult to have a pace advantage big enough to be able to get by the car in front. So although Lewis was able to get by a few of the slower cars earlier on, as he came up to the back of Ricciardo, we were really struggling. So we waited to a point where we thought we had undercut both on Ricciardo and on Max to see if we could get right by both of them at the same time. And as it turned out, we were able to make that strategy work. And from that point on, we were on a two-stop strategy where Lewis was able to drive aggressively all the way through the race and to maximise the performance in the car. Why didn't we bring Lewis in earlier than lap 47 for his second stop? Well, you might think if we'd have brought him in earlier, that would have given us more opportunity at the end of the race to fight for the win. The reality is that what we're trying to do is to maximise the tyre differential. So around Hungary, it's really difficult to overtake. And so if we'd have gone earlier, the differential in tyres to Alonso would have been much smaller, and it would have actually been harder to overtake. If we'd have gone slightly longer, which is what we thought in hindsight we should have done, we'd have increased that difference in tyre age from 10 laps maybe to 12 laps. As a result of that, we may have been able to get by Alonso quicker, and that would have allowed us to fight for the win. The other advantage if we'd have gone slightly longer is Alonso had slightly younger tyres than Sainz, and he closed up right behind him, but he only had a couple of laps in with which to attack. If we'd have given him a couple more laps to attack, maybe he'd have got by, and maybe that would have meant it was easier for Lewis as a result. It also would have meant that Alonso would have done damage to his tyres, taken life out of his tyres, that would have also helped us in the race. How is Lewis doing? Well, thank you for asking in the first place. I guess you saw him on the podium struggling. I think I saw him about an hour after that, and he was definitely a chunk better, and I know he's recovered since then. I think if you've never been near these cars, it's really difficult to understand the environment the drivers are in. The air that's going by the car, actually, because the car's so close to the ground, is actually closer to the ground temperature than it is to the air temperature. So during that race, I suspect that was sort of 40, 50 degree air. It was humid. The driver was also sitting in an environment where there's electrical boxes around him, there's hydraulics with power steering, so it's a hot environment. And that was one tough race. You know, Lewis was really pushing on that two-stop. Some of the overtakes he was doing was absolutely brilliant, but that takes a lot of energy out of you in that really hot environment. And the average person like you and me, we wouldn't survive 5 minutes in there, let alone a whole race. So it was unsurprising that Lewis was tired at the end of that, but as he said to the media, I think he also wonders whether that's some of the feeling of having had COVID. So hopefully he'll make a good recovery. He's now going to have a break over the shutdown, and I'm sure he'll come back really strong for the second half of the season. How's the team feeling going into the summer break? Well, for those of you that don't know, in Formula One we have a 2-week enforced break where everybody goes away, there's no emails, there's nothing that technical people can do. And me personally, I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's been a really tough season so far, and I think we're probably feeling quite tired. I think we've been enthused and energised by the last 2 races. The team needs a break, and I'm sure they'll come back really strong as a result of that. I think a few races ago, we probably would have been looking at this and thinking, this is going to be really tough going into a break, not in the position we wanted to be in the championship, and with a car which felt like we were clearly second best. I think we've obviously had some good results in the last 2 races. Luck has definitely gone in our favour, and we're sitting in a good position in the championship. But I think for me, what's really encouraging is the pace we've shown in the last 2 races. You know, particularly the qualifying Budapest, to qualify 1 and 2, and by a reasonable margin, that's the strongest position we've been in so far this season. You know, the rest of the season is definitely going to be tough. It's going to be a real fight. I think it's going to be one of those classic F1 seasons. Hopefully one we win, but I think it's going to be fantastic for you, the viewers, to watch. Thank you for all of your questions. Like we're going to have a summer break. I hope you have a really good summer. I hope you don't miss the F1 too much in that time. We look forward to answering your questions after the Belgian Grand Prix.